Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay and the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack-It Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
Welcome to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast and a special basketball preview edition. I'm Jeff Sharon, along with Brian Murphy and Eric Lopez. I have no open joke to start. We're just gonna dive right into this, guys. It's hard to believe. Like, here we are in November, and it is basketball season, isn't it?
It is November, so it is basketball season. That's a good job out of you.
Yep, I have command of time and space.
It's the best time of the year. It's the best time of the year. We got NBA, got the NBA going on, and college hoops ready to roll, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, we're coming down the stretch in football. You know, we've got it's the fall sports equinox, Eric Lopez. We're going to be really busy the next few weeks.
That's a good problem to have.
True.
But, it's awesome. It'll be exciting to just see the basket and get to the arena, and excited for two programs. That was one.
That's true. So we've got a lot to talk about, and a very interesting year it is for UCF basketball, like you said, Eric, on both sides. And we're going to preview both teams in this episode. We're going to preview the men's team and the women's team. On the women's side, we've got an interview with Coach Abe, Katie Abrahamson-Henderson, about her team heading into the 2019-2020 season. And on the men's side, we will talk with Collin Smith as well, one of the few returnees on the men's basketball team. So let's actually get started with that. UCF last year on the men's side, wow, what a storybook. Certainly conclusion to the year it was. Finished 24-9, 13-5 in the conference, tied for third. Made it to the NCAA Tournament as an at-large team for the first time in school history. Won the first NCAA Tournament game in school history. And then in the second round against number one overall seed Duke. Of course, we all remember it, the B.J. Taylor missed layup, the missed putback by Aubrey Dawkins, rolling around and out of the rim, and UCF comes that close to knocking off the Duke Blue Devils in the NCAA
game of the year.
Black and Gold Banneret Award Game of the Year. Even though it was a loss, it was that amazing. Certainly a moment that we'll never forget. Highest rated UCF sporting event of any kind in terms of television, and it was just, even thinking back to it, it was amazing and it was heartbreaking at the same time. So, well, lots changed for UCF men's basketball since then. Obviously, Taco Fall gone. B.J. Taylor gone. Aubrey Dawkins gone. All graduated. Number of graduations, a number of transfers out of the program as well. UCF returns only 3 players from last year's team who saw any significant minutes. Frank Burtz, Cesar DeJesus, and Collin Smith. 6 transfers come in to UCF. All but one of them are 6'6" or taller. 3 of them are 6'11" or taller. Plus a number of freshmen coming in for Johnny Dawkins' team in 2019-2020. So, Brian Murphy, I will begin with you. The huge turnover on this roster. What the question that everyone's gonna wonder is, what are we to expect from this team this year with all these new faces?
That's a good question, and one that I can't even tell you the answer to that because I'm not even sure if Johnny Dawkins knows what to expect from this. We talked to Johnny before Media Day, a couple weeks before that when UCF started practicing, in early October, and he said this is one of the biggest challenges of his coaching career. This is his 12th season as a head coach, and he doesn't remember having a team in which he had to replace 9 players. And so I'm not sure if he knows what to expect, because there's just so many guys that have never been together ever in any sense. You could talk about last year's team, how, well, they hadn't really played together much because Aubrey had been hurt a lot and BJ broke his foot once, Taco had been hurt a lot, but at least they're around each other a lot. These guys are mostly all new. I mean, the returning players, your top returning players are Collin Smith, Cesar DeJesus, and Frank Burtz. 2 of those guys were reserves. So I don't know. What can we expect? I would say I have no idea. So there you go. Great answer. And I would keep the expectations modest, because there are going to be some massive growing pains as this year goes on. Not only because their conference is really good, but also just because of the lack of familiarity together. There's going to be some really tough nights.
Eric Lopez, it's kind of hard to see. It's going to be a difficult season, I think, in general. Certainly, probably in the early going, there's going to be just a lot of uneven play. When you see a team turn over like this, I guess maybe you would know this better than anybody. Do you recall any team, maybe not just in basketball for UCF or anywhere else, but really any UCF team that had this much turnover from one year to the other?
I can't think of one top of my head that jumps out at all that really would have this kind of a level.
Everyone's thrown for a loop by this team.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to think here. You asked the question, so I'm trying to think. I can't, to be honest. I mean, it's at least on the UCF side. You see this a lot in college basketball in general, but usually the big programs, the blue bloods, as they like to say, have constant turnover. The difference is you're replacing one McDonald's All-American with another McDonald's All-American. So, it's not a big deal. But this one's not the case, and it's a bit of a rebuild. But however, let's say this. There is talent here. Let's not act like there is not talent. And, Brian, let's start with the point guard position. And Dejon Ingram, the transfer from Alabama, who played UCF, ironically, the year that when Alabama was here at UCF, and in fact they had the home-and-home series recently. I think it starts with him. I mean, I think he's a talented player, and I think we got to start with that and him and coming over from Alabama.
Absolutely, and talking to him, Dejon is pretty open about his days at Alabama, and he thought that they sort of restricted his game. They wanted him to focus on certain aspects of the game, and kind of like how they, kind of like in football, you want certain quarterbacks to be game managers. They wanted Dejon to be more of a game manager than really, I think he believes, using his full skill set. He says now that with Johnny Dawkins' system, which they expect to be more up and down this year, more free-flowing, a lot more perimeter-based, that he's able to do more on the court than he was able to do at Alabama on all facets, passing, shooting, defense, because he's not as locked in. He's more free-form, basically. So he said that a lot. I think that's one thing that's caught my eye about him. And so, yes, he will be the guy who leads this offense, who will be sort of the, for lack of a better way to describe it, the BJ Taylor replacement,
he's got more than 100 games of college experience under his belt. Last year, he averaged 7.1 points, 2.6 assists, 3.8 rebounds. His best year was 2 years ago when he averaged 10.6 and 3.3 assists and 4 rebounds. His points per game total has gone down. His rebounds has fluctuated, but, it's pretty good. He shot 52% also 2 years ago. And is a 38% 3-point shooter as well. So yeah, it's pretty easy to see him as the BJ Taylor replacement. My question is, who's the guy who's going to take the place of Aubrey Dawkins as that explosive scorer that we saw, in particular toward the end of last year?
Yeah, I don't think there is a guy on this roster right now who is going to be that dynamic wing player. Mm-hmm. Who can shoot from the inside, shoot from the outside, drive inside. I think the best replacement scorer they've got is Matt Milan. Oviedo native. This is going to be a story that every telecast will pound into the ground. But he's a kid who grew up going to UCF games, watching the Keith Clantons of the world as a kid. Transferred in from William and Mary after the coach there got fired. So he comes to UCF to finish his college career, and he is an all-out sharpshooter. He is a marksman, a guy that you expect to hit 40 to 45% of his three-pointers. So really, he kind of picked up the scoring slack. But in terms of, are you looking for that slasher wing, inside and outside guy? I don't think there's a guy on that roster who can really replace what Aubrey did.
Yeah. Milan, another guy with over 90 games of college experience and a career three-point shooter at over 42%, by the way, and at William & Mary, and actually played a year at Boston College before he transferred to William & Mary as well, so we know how good he is there. Last year he averaged 13 points a game, shot 40% from the arc. One of the other newcomers I'm interested in is Ibrahim Famouke Doumbia, who comes over from South Carolina. Didn't play that much for Frank Martin down there in the SEC. Only 12 games, only averaged 3 minutes per game, but is a 6'7", is listed at 6'7", has a big frame. What do we know about him coming into this year?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly where he fits with this roster right now. I really don't. And I think what you can count on with this team right now, what we know about this team is Collin Smith is really the head of the snake. He's going to be the guy who gets the ball in big minutes. You've got Milan and Ingram are going to play big minutes as newcomers. Frank Burt's, Cesar DeHace, who's off the bench, will certainly chip in. I'm not sure where a guy like Famouke really fits in right now. I think the good thing is with Famouke, he's got at least a year of experience in the program. He was here last year,
right?
So sat out as a transfer, and that is valuable. Certainly, he's got that over a lot of guys on this team. But I still don't know where he really fits in on this team. I just think his name has not been brought up a whole lot. By Johnny Dawkins. So I'm not sure where he really fits.
Let's talk about the size. Go ahead, Eric. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm just going to say, I think those are things that are going to have to play out during the season. I mean, I don't, either somebody will step in and step up and play at a high level and say, wow, that was big, or it may have to be multiple guys that kind of contribute to that. So I think those are still to be determined and wild cards. And I think that could be one where one night it's one guy and the other guy, and the next night is a different guy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. One thing I think that Johnny Dawkins does deserve plenty of credit for is the size that he's brought in with these transfers. Obviously, we mentioned how Collin Smith returning is 6'11". He's going to get the big minutes, but it's going to be when we talk about replacing guys like Aubrey Dawkins and B.J. Taylor. The question then becomes who replaces Taco Fall, who is such a unicorn inside at 7'6". But again, this might be another big man by committee thing. But there's a number of big guys coming in. Uad Alak, who actually has already been at UCF for a little bit, transferred over from TCU. He's 6'11". Avery Diggs from Southwest Mississippi Community College at 6'11". Moses Bowl, another community college transfer, who's 7'1". So, okay, granted, you're not going to really be able to fully replace a guy like Taco Fall because, like I said, he's a unicorn. But it's not like UCF is suddenly becoming small either, right, Brian?
No, they're not small. I will say I'm not sure how much Moses Bowl plays either. I mean, I'm taking this. I don't know. I'm sure I think he's eligible. I say that because he wasn't even brought out at media day. So right. Just putting that out there. And Uad Alak, is sort of a stretch five. He likes to shoot jumpers, which can be frustrating at times for a guy of his size. But he will not be available until the end of the fall semester. Due to transfer rules. So he won't be playing until at least mid-December. But to your point, yes, there is size here. We just don't know what it all looks like, except for Collin Smith. And Collin was not a real defensive stalwart. That's not his game.
Right.
Collin is a really good offensive player, a versatile guy who I think is going to improve as a shooter, but also has shown that when they get the ball to him on the block, he can go to work like he did against Houston and really do good things. But I just don't know how this other size is really going to pan out. I mean, defensively, I think they're still going to be strong because Johnny Dawkins is going to put so much emphasis on that side of the ball. But to say that they're going to be a top 10 defense, in the ways that they were previously, I don't see that happening just because Taco Fall changes so many things, not just the blocks, but the shot adjustments and the choices you make on offense.
Yeah.
Well, he's a one-of-a-kind guy. He's a one-of-a-kind player. I mean, you can't, you're not going to, you just don't find 7-6 guys with his abilities ever. So I think that's fair. I think defensively, the question will be maybe a guy like Avery Diggs, maybe Uat when he gets back from eligibility. I think that's going to be the question defensively there, maybe helping the rim there. But here's the thing, Murph. You might talk about Collin Smith. I think he's the most important player on this team because he goes from a guy that probably was the number 4 option offensively most nights last year to perhaps the number 1 or number 2 option on this team. And I think that's going to be, to me, is going to be the key at how successful UCF is that jump that Collin Smith might have. And, you and I got a chance to catch up with him at Media Day.
Yes, we did. And, Collin knows the pressure is on him. He knows he's the focal point of this team. He knows that as a junior now, he has to be a leader on this team. And I think, we talk about that and many other things with Collin Smith. As I think we have an interview with him.
Yep.
That we'll cut to now as I make a really sloppy transition.
You can tell who the guy who didn't have radio training is, right, Eric? Huh? Come on, Mark.
I'm all about the writing. Anyway, yes. So here's Collin Smith talking about how he's trying to be a better leader, how he's improved this season, and many other things. And what I thought was a pretty entertaining interview when we caught up with Collin Smith at Media Day. What your excitement level is like for this season, maybe than heading into last season, is it any different?
It's not any different. Yeah. But I can say I'm very excited right now. It's been a long off season. Just trying to get, the last season off my mind. You know what I'm saying? How it ended. And I think that this is just a new start for us, and I just can't wait. I wonder if any of the players on this team who were here last year have gone back to watch any clips or highlights of that Duke game. Well, I'm telling you, I was watching those clips for 2 months straight. Just the same video every day. Because it just sat in my mind how I never want to feel like that again. I appreciate that because I talked to Coach back in August, and Dawkins said he's never going to watch it ever again. He never would. I appreciate that someone on this team is watching that game because that game was great. That was a great game. I love it. And we almost had it. It was crazy, but it's a learning experience, for me, for the guys that went up to the NBA. It's a learning experience for them, and I hope that, they take that and use it in their future endeavors as well. Obviously, this team is looking for somebody. I mean, you guys have a lot of leaders because you got some seniors, guys transferred in, but they want that one guy that people are going to turn to when things go rough. And at least three guys here today have mentioned your name first out of their mouths as being the leader of this team. Just how has that gone for you, becoming more vocal and being more of that leadership role? I think me becoming one of the older guys on the team, becoming a leader, it's helped me a lot on the court, but also off the court. Though I'm already outspoken, I feel like it makes it easier for me to talk now. Mm-hmm. And just having my teammates come up to me, asking me questions, whether they don't know the plays or whether they need something off the court, it's kind of crazy. I feel like I'm a dad sometimes, but it's a cool experience, just learning everything about everybody. So you got a lot of freshmen here, so we've got to learn the ropes. So is that what you mean by being a dad when you talk to guys who are freshmen? Freshmen, even some of the new guys that we got that are transfers, they don't really know the play because they come from different systems as well. So just teaching them what's going on as well. Replacing Taco with that front court, with you and Ibrahim, and when Ulat becomes available, what's that going to look like with you guys up front? With me, I'm not really the best shot blocker out there, but I'll be taking a lot of charges. So I'll be down there sliding my feet. But Uat and Ibrahim are athletic freaks, and they're going to be jumping everywhere. So just trying to keep them out of foul trouble is going to be the biggest goal for us. Uat compared his skill set to yours, and I know you like to shoot your threes. Is Uat really going to step out and take 25-footers? Uat is going to step out and take 25-footers. do not let him fool you. He will shoot some threes. I can't wait for that. Obviously in the point guard position with BJ gone,
What's it been like having Dazon? I think Dazon really running the show here, running this offense.
To be honest, I think Dazon's kind of like a 6'6" BJ. The way he uses his body, the way he contorts to make good passes, the way he easily gets in the paint. I feel like it makes the game just so much easier because he's putting so much pressure on the basket. My man is going up to him, then he just dishes it off to me for the short corner shot, or I'm just diving in the lane. It makes the game so easy.
Do you see, because this offense relied so much on Taco, BJ, and Aubrey, and then you were sort of the fourth option at times, and you stepped up, but really, is this offense more spread out this year, more spread the wealth kind of offense this year?
It definitely is, because we got more passing going around, we got more cutting, we got more back doors, we got more lobs. We got a lot of stuff. We got a lot of new things to show y'all this season.
And obviously, a couple weeks ago, we talked about the pace. You guys are picking up the pace. How has that been? Just describe the difference of playing in practice from last year to this year.
I feel like it's fun. It's fun because I love running up and down with my teammates, making good passes, connecting plays. It's all just good vibes for me. So running up and down the court has just been it's one of the feelings that I've been wishing that I had these past couple years that I've been in college.
What or who among the new guys that we haven't seen yet, has been most impressive to you?
Brandon, he's a redshirt this year.
Yeah.
But I didn't know he was that good. He's really been getting us a lot better in practice. He's been killing us. So Brandon's been a really bright spot. Darren, knockdown shooter. Matt Milan, of course, you know about him. Mm-hmm. He's been hitting everything. Tony's been coming along, attacking the basket, trying to find a shot.
Some people have talked about Darren because of his shooting, but no one has mentioned Brandon because, obviously he's redshirting. Mm-hmm. But talk about what have you seen from Brandon? Because we won't see him for another year. But what do you see?
It's just he's like a pure scorer. Some of the shots he's taking, I'm like, wow. The way he just moves his body in the air, the way he goes in the paint and hop steps. It's crazy to see him score because some of the moves he make, you only see that in the league, and he's already doing it right now. And I just feel like if he got the chance, he'll really kill.
Any team goals?
Just to be the best team that we could be. Go out there, compete every night, give us our best, and just give us another chance to go 1-0 every night.
Oh, 1-0.
Any individual things you worked on during the offseason to make you a better player that you've worked on?
Just my shot, my mid-range, my threes, my handles. You'll see a couple of breakouts where I'm bringing the ball up the court and making passes, connecting plays or whatever. So just working on the guard stuff, trying to focus on that.
There's been talk in the offseason about the three-point line, moving it back, and all that's good and all that. What's your thoughts on the three-point line in general?
I feel like I shoot better, deeper. Okay. Just because, most of the time I'm hitting the backboard. So just working on my touch and stuff. But I'm all for moving the line backwards.
Is that an adjustment at all? If they, moving it back or anything like that? Or is it just one of those things where you're hey, we're going to shoot it from the line, we'll make it an easy adjustment?
You got to jump a little more, maybe put something in your wrist a little bit. But all in all, shooting is shooting. You either got touch or you don't.
How comfortable are the coaches with you and letting you, freelance more outside and perimeter and letting you shoot more than last year? Because I will say, last year, I know they wanted you at times to get more on the block. Mm-hmm. But are they more comfortable with letting you go out there more this year?
Yeah, they've seen that the player that I've become and how my IQ has risen every year. Mm-hmm. So they know that I'll take smart shots and I won't just be out there chucking out threes all night.
So that's Collin Smith, the 6'11", 240 redshirt junior from Jacksonville, discussing what his role is going to be coming into this season. So we talked about the guys who are returning or transferring, like Collin, who's going to be leading the charge. This team has 3 seniors on the roster: Frank Burtz, Dazon Ingram, and Matt Milan. Of course, Collin's a junior, a redshirt junior. A decent number of juniors, but there's a number of young guys here that I think are pretty interesting and intriguing to take a look at. When you look at the freshmen coming in, Tony Johnson Jr., who's from Eufaula, Alabama, went to the Skill Factory in Georgia. Now, Dre Fuller's listed as a freshman, but he's a redshirt freshman. He's been here already. But and then of course Darren Green Jr., who went to Wharton over at Tampa, actually a teammate of another guy on the roster, Ryan, a high school teammate of another guy on the UCF roster, I should say, Ryan Anders, who also went to Tampa Wharton. So now we're going to start to see, I think, the real fruition of Johnny Dawkins' recruiting ability, right? Because now he's not trying to work with guys who were brought in under another regime. These are his guys that he's working with, right, Brian?
Correct. And so, at this time last year, guys, I think we had expectations that Dre Fuller would play on this team last year. As it turns out, as guys sort of stayed healthy, there really was never a spot for him. They redshirted him. But Dre Fuller, I guess going back to our original question of who could possibly be an Aubrey type of guy, like he has the athleticism to do that. I'm not sure. He's certainly not anywhere near the shooter that Aubrey was. But in terms of explosive ability, a guy who can go kind of inside, outside, big play guy. Dre Fuller has that. And also, Darren Green, I believe Dazon Ingram said Darren Green might be the best shooter he's ever seen. Now, again, that's only Dazon's opinion, and it is his teammate now. But I heard that from multiple guys about, I asked guys, who's the freshman, who's one of the really young newcomers who have stood out in practice, and almost everyone says Darren Green because of his pure shooting ability. And that is always wanted. So I could definitely see him playing major minutes as a microwave type of scorer for this offense.
So, Eric, I know one of the other guys you came away really impressed with from Media Day was Tony Johnson Jr., the freshman from UFA, Alabama. Went to the most amazing, reportedly the most amazing sounding high school in history, the Skill Factory in Georgia. Tell me about Tony. What was it that impressed you so much when you talked to him?
He's a very confident young man, very well spoken, smart, has a passion for the game of basketball, and he's a fascinating young guy, and I was really impressed with him, and it intrigues me. He intrigues me very much because he is wearing number 1, and that's a very big deal at UCF, a big number. A couple great ones have worn that number, Jermaine Taylor and, of course, B.J. Taylor. I had a chance to talk to Tony Johnson at Media Day to get to know him and ask him what got him into basketball and is he aware about the number 1 there at UCF and what he brings to the table to the Black and Gold. Here's now my conversation with Tony Johnson.
But tell me, what got you interested to come to UCF?
The coaching staff, man. Coach Dawkins, Coach Norris, each one of them, Coach Taylor, everybody on the coaching staff. I related to them. Coach Dawkins, Coach Norris, Coach Taylor, they played my position. They played in the NBA. So the knowledge that I would get coming here, Coach Lang, the amount of knowledge he would be able to give me, to hopefully, take my game to that next level. Coach Lang also is from where I'm from, so we have some ties there. So, yeah, the coaching staff, the culture here, when I came with my business, everybody, it's family feel. Everybody's a family here. So, yeah, man, I just want to be a part of this. And, UCF is up and coming, so I want to be a part of, the building stage of this and, see where we can take it.
Describe your game for the fans there that get to see you play.
Very skilled, athletic, fast, can do a lot of things on the floor. So, yeah, energy guy. When I need to, just do whatever I need for my team to win, whatever the coaches ask me to do. Try to fill that void, fill that role, and yes, sir, just willing to do whatever. I'm a winner.
You're wearing number 1. That's a pretty good number in this program. It's very high, held in high regard. I don't know if you're aware of that or not, but so tell me about how you got to wear number 1, and obviously BJ coming before you wearing into other great players.
Man, I actually, starting off early, I wore number 10. Then I wore 0 sometime in high school. Then I switched to number 1. So I just been, switching around those numbers a little bit, but 1 just kind of stuck with me. I like how it looked on me. BJ is a great player. He came through. He did some great things here. So, I'm just trying to, keep on that and build on that legacy. Not even build on his legacy, create my own legacy, but, just kind of, keep that number 1, looking good. So, yeah, BJ is a great player, but I'm just trying to, make my own name.
Did you follow BJ and talk on what they did here closely? And if you did, what stood out to you when you watched them, either on TV or in person or whatever?
This past season, I definitely followed them a lot. It was part of my recruiting process. Mm-hmm. It was like a vital point in my recruiting process. So I was definitely paying attention to the schools that were recruiting me. And, those guys, they were leaders. They played together for a while.
so they knew how to play with each other. BJ never got sped up. He could score the ball really well. So, he was very poised, and, I looked to put some of that stuff in my game, being very poised, always under control, getting to my spots. He's never sped up. He's not the fastest guy, but you wouldn't know because he gets around whoever he wants to. So, and Taco, he's 7'6", there's only 50 people in the world his height, so he's special, man. He's a special dude, special guy off the court, and he's special on the court. So those guys, I can learn a lot from watching them.
Who are you learning from on this team here since you've arrived? And you got a lot of new faces, so you're all kind of learning each other. But what's that been like?
The leaders, the guys from last year, Collin, they talk to me every day. We don't play the same position, but they lead, in any way that I need them to. Dazon, he's a fifth-year guy. He's from Alabama. He plays the same position as me, so as far as my position, I learned a lot from him because he's been through it. It's his fifth year here. It's my first year, so I can learn a lot from everybody here, though. But those two guys have been, vital. Collin taking that step as being a leader on my team, and Dazon, he's a natural leader. He's playing my position. And then, C's, he leads. Yeah. Matt is a fifth-year guy. He leads. So, everybody, I feel like we have a team full of leaders. So it just depends on the day. Everybody can lead. Everybody leads here. Levy, he's a leader. Everybody leads here. Whenever whoever needs to lead, everybody's not gonna have a great day every day. So whoever steps up that day, that's who leads. And I'll just take something from everybody.
Who inspired you to play basketball? Did you have a favorite player that inspired you?
My favorite player growing up would be Allen Iverson, LeBron James. Those are my two guys. But my family played basketball. My sister probably inspired me the most to play basketball. I fell in love with the game at a young age. I used to watch Love and Basketball a lot. So
you grew into it, basically.
Yes, sir. Quincy McCall. That's a big inspiration for me out from Love and Basketball. So I just always love this game. It's always in my heart. So I put everything into it, and I made it this far, and I'm not done yet.
All right, that's my conversation with Tony Johnson from Media Day, the young freshman. Look, and Brian, with this type of team, I feel there's going to be a freshman that contributes to the success of this team one way or the other, right? And it might be someone like Johnson, who can be somebody that comes off the bench and gets hot and maybe wins a game for you.
Certainly, I think, and I think I just sort of mentioned it, but I do think I do think Darren Green's shooting ability, scoring ability is something this team's going to want and really going to require at points, because there's not a lot of go-to guys on this team as far as scores. At least that's what we believe now going into the season. Who knows? They're going to have to use the young guys. Dre Fuller is going to play this year. And even though he's a redshirt freshman, he's still a freshman. So that's going to be, again, that's what we mean, or that's what I mean when I say I don't even know if Johnny Dawkins knows what to expect this year, because it's just so new. They will have to use the young guys, and that is, at least, while it's going to be torturous at times, it's going to be interesting and at times very fun to watch.
Yeah. Let's talk about the conference, at least as of right now, because not a lot of respect being handed to UCF, at least as of right now, because of all these newcomers. The Knights are picked 9th in the league, only ahead of Tulsa, ECU, and Tulane. Houston and Memphis finished tied atop the preseason polls, although Houston had more first-place votes than Memphis. They both had 113 overall points. Cincinnati picked 3rd with 1 first-place vote, followed by Wichita State, USF, UConn, Temple, SMU, and then obviously UCF at number 9. I'll ask you, both of you guys, and Eric, I'll start with you. You agree with that poll?
I mean, it's a preseason, but look, it was voted by the coach. If this was voted by the media like Brian Murphy in football, then I would pay more attention to it. But he wasn't.
Never mind the coaches. What do they know?
What do they know?
Thank you for taking yet another subtle shot at my bringing up that I had a vote in the preseason.
Not a shot. I mean, somehow you got a vote in the football. And by the way, looking good with Memphis pick. I mean, that's looking pretty good. So, But yeah, I don't know. I mean, look, I think it's fair to have UCF near, low because there's a lot of questions about this roster. It's not like we're the only ones asking these questions. I'm sure there's a lot of people asking these questions. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. If I remember Coach Dawkins' first year, they were picked, I think, near the bottom, if not last in the league. Yeah. And he surprised people and got them to the NIT. Now, granted, that was a returning B.J. Taylor from health and things like that. But nonetheless, I like the fact there are no expectations, and I think these guys understand that, and I think they have a little bit of a chip on the shoulder. And by the way, this league is very good, and Murph, this league is very good at the top, and I think it's going to be fascinating to see. The one difference this year is last year we could say, all right, pencil this as a win for UCF, pencil this for a win.
Yeah.
With this roster at this point, Murph, there's not a lot of games you could pencil in, and I think that's why there's so much uncertainty, and that's why they're probably ranked low in the conference.
Yeah, and I will say I love the way that this year is unfolding in the AAC. I think it's going to be a really, really fun conference, even if UCF is not really in the mix at the end to win a championship, because there are a bunch of good teams. They had the old saying of, if you don't see an easy opponent on your schedule, that's a bad thing because that means you're the easy opponent. And I'm not saying that about UCF. There are legitimately 5 or 6 or maybe 7 really good teams in this conference, like NCAA tournament teams. And like coaches might say that to pump themselves up, pump the conference up. But I'm saying that as like trying to be unbiased observer. With Cincinnati, got Jaron Cumberland coming back. Houston with Kelvin Sampson, always running good program, always running a quality on-court program, but also with Dejan Giroux and Quentin Grimes, the former McDonald's All-American transfer from Kansas, now eligible. That's huge. Obviously, Memphis is the class of the conference. I still believe, even with their probably, I would say, of the top 10 or 9 or 10 guys they rotate, 7 of them will be freshmen. They're probably going to start all 5 freshmen. On their starting 5, but
might have the potential number 1 overall pick on the roster.
I do believe James Wiseman will be number 1 in the draft. It's gonna be a fun year for that team. They should make it at least in the Sweet 16. Wichita State's another year older. Connecticut's still pretty good. Temple's got a couple guys back. They lose Shiz Alston. Obviously, Fran Dumpy's out as well, but they've got a couple guys back. And then my dark horse. The team that I'm tying my wagon for, the USF Bulls. This team can be really good, really, really good. Everyone's back. I think they have a chance again. I'll say this 1,000 times. I think they have a chance to be second in this conference. I believe Memphis wins it. But maybe Cincinnati takes a step back without Mick Cronin. Houston lost a ton of offense last year. Even with Grimes and Giroux, they still have points to make up, and you can see a pathway for USF to finish second. I think since we're talking about USF here, we're talking about UCF here, obviously. I think UCF's range is probably like 11 at the lowest and like 7 at the highest.
How about you, Eric? Where do you have them? Where will you have their range at?
Sorry, for a second there, I got lost. I thought we were in the Daily Stampede podcast there for a second here. Holy smokes.
Now.
My goodness. No, but in fairness, I don't know if I got him as picked second, but this is a big year for South Florida. Brian Gregory's done a nice job there. And they're kind of in the position, to some extent, what UCF was last year. But there is high expectations there after kind of overseeing things last year. I think they have a shot to be a postseason basketball team. Whether they're NCAA or not remains to be seen. Obviously, Memphis is the favorite team. But I can tell you this, boys, having spent time with some of the Houston people this weekend, because football was here, obviously played against UCF on Saturday, and then women's soccer in the American Conference Championship against UCF. So I got a chance to talk to them. And I think Kelvin Sampson, from what I've heard, loves the fact that everybody's picking Memphis. Like right now, Kelvin Sampson loves right now the fact. He probably just threw his jacket and his tie. If you just send him Brian's clip about picking South Florida for second, he's in joy because he loves the fact that his team is getting no respect and what he's built there. And I think they're going to be motivated, and he's a great coach, and I think they're going to still be a team to be reckoned with. I would still have them in the second. And then Cincinnati, I feel like the reason why we're down on them is because Mick Cronin left. John Brannon, the new head coach, is as good as it gets. He's an up-and-coming up-and-coming coach, did a great job at Northern Kentucky. They do have the, Cumberland, who was one of the top players in the league, was a player of the year type. So, and then Wichita State, they lose Echenike for a month through an injury, but they got a lot of guys back. So I think this is a league that's a 3 to 4 bid NCAA tournament team bid league with possible 2 to 3, 4 more teams going to the NIT and other postseason berths. But I got Memphis, but I still have Houston and Cincinnati. South Florida, I'm curious to see how they handle the expectations by people like Brian Murphy now, who's put them in the, in the podium here. And we'll see how they respond to that pressure, because there's a lot of pressure when Brian Murphy puts you at the top of your list. I'll tell you that.
Well, Memphis, I'm glad that Memphis Tigers have responded well on football. You talk about the lack of respect for Houston, though. I mean, it is worth noting, obviously, and you brought it up a little bit, that the coaches at least respect them by giving them all the first place votes.
Correct. No, you're right.
But
there was also a little shade there, probably at Penny Hardaway, who, by the way, if only Penny Hardaway could find himself on TV on that college game day on Saturday.
I think Penny was on TV more than Mike Norvell, it seemed like, on Sunday.
I actually agree with that. I think if we did a clock watch, I think that's pretty accurate.
Penny knows what he is. He's a basketball coach, and he's also a figurehead. He's a front-facing figurehead. He's a big deal, especially he's a huge deal in Memphis. Let's not cut that short. I think the last thing I'll say here is for UCF, the ceiling is an NIT bid anywhere at any spot. That is the ceiling.
Yeah, but hey, one of the things you were talking about, no pressure, right?
But let me ask you this: for that to happen, Murph, don't you believe? I believe that either Collin Smith or Ingram, one of them, has to be an all-conference performer for them to reach that level that you're talking about. To jump an SMU, for example, to jump the Connecticut's, the Tulsas, the East Carolinas, and onward. To get to if you can get to that middle of the top half of the year, one of those guys has to be an all-conference player. No,
maybe both of them.
I think Collin Smith is an all-conference player. I mean, he is. We're gonna have to see it out of Ingram or maybe even Milan as a shooter, but yeah, that goes without saying. They're probably gonna have both those guys be all-conference players.
No UCF players are picked to either of the preseason all-conference teams, by the way. 3 USF guys were only Jaron Cumberland out of Cincinnati, 2 guys from Temple, 2 guys from UConn, 1 ECU, 1 Houston, 1 Memphis, if you can believe it. But no UCF players.
I mean, well, which one from Memphis? Let me guess.
Take a wild guess.
Yes. No, it's interesting. Houston only gets 1, but again, I think that sort of hints at what Houston has to replace. Losing Corey Davis, losing Armani Brooks, it's gonna be a lot. So that's why I have Memphis finishing first, and that's why I think USF can go get into that 2 spot.
Where do you have Houston then? Give me your UCF. Where do you have UCF? Because I've got UCF kind of in that 6 to 8 range, and what's so tricky about this is there's going to be some toss-up games. They could go either way. They could make the difference between finishing 6th and finishing like 9th, right? I mean, I feel like it's going to be one of those years.
Yeah, I think I said my range for UCF is 7 to 11, 7 at the high, 11 to the low.
Yeah.
And that's about it. I have Houston at worst. They're probably 3rd at worst. I still believe they're better than Cincinnati now, so they're probably 3rd at worst. I will say Tulane's going to win a conference game this year, guys.
It's going to happen. Going out on a limb for that. UCF men's basketball season starts Saturday. This coming Saturday. I hope it's not
against us, for the record, right?
Yeah, I know, right? UCF's season starts November the 9th. That's a Saturday against Prairie View A&M at 3 p.m. And then right after that, a quick test at home against Miami, November the 12th. That's a Tuesday. Home games in the non-conference slate include those 2 plus Charleston. The Knights do play a tournament out in Anaheim, California, and then come back for a bunch of home games. NJIT, Green Bay, go Highlanders, by the way. Not against UCF, but my uncle went there. Sacred Heart, Bethune-Cookman at Oklahoma, and then conference play starts with Temple at home on New Year's Eve. You got Cincinnati coming here January 11th. South Florida here on January 18th. Memphis, January 29th. That's a Wednesday night. It's going to be on ESPN, one of the ESPN networks, ESPN2 or ESPNU. That's going to be big. Tulsa, Wichita, Tulane, SMU, ECU to finish out the season on March the 8th. So,
I guess what's good for UCF fans is that at least, well, I'll say two things. One, for UCF, they don't have to go to Memphis this year, which is good for them because they can't win in that building and never have. But conversely, I'm kind of sad that they're not going to Memphis because I would love to see that team with that building and how that city's going to rally around them.
Okay. Well, Lord knows you'll probably get plenty of them on ESPN this year anyway, Murph. So you'll get your wish. Don't worry about it. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk UCF women's basketball, and we'll hear from Coach Abe. The Knights also with a massive turnover on their roster, but where are they picked in the preseason? It's a whole different ballgame for KK Wright and the Knights this year. We'll preview them when we return. This is the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast, Basketball Preview Edition.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.
Welcome back to our Black and Gold Banneret Basketball Preview Podcast. Jeff Sharon, Eric Lopez, Brian Murphy with you. Don't forget to follow us at blackandgoldbanneret.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at UCF_Banneret and Facebook.com/blackandgoldbanneret all throughout basketball season, which takes us to the women's side of things. The Knights are receiving votes in the college, in the USA Today WBCA coaches poll, and this is despite the fact that their roster turned over almost as much as the men's team this year. But they do have one key player coming back, and of course, that's KK Wright. KK last year, obviously, it was so amazing for UCF, and she just continues to get better. And as we look at what she did last year in really carrying this team, started all 33 games, averaged 18 points per game, led the team in assists with 115. Nobody else had more than 44. She was an 82% foul shooter. She shot 43% from the field, 35% from beyond the arc. She just did it all, and she comes back for another season. But aside from her, and she's basically obviously your top returner. Kayla Thigpen's gone. Sydney McDonald's gone. Jamisha Paul graduated. Nye Schuler graduated. Brittany Smith, of course, is back. Tolu McCoy graduated. L'Oreal Wilson graduated. Not a lot coming back for UCF, but Coach Abe did manage to get quite a few people in the mix to try and keep this run going with one more year of KK. So, Eric Lopez, I turn it to you. What are your expectations for this team as they start this season with KK, but with a lot of other new faces around her?
They have a lot of new faces, but still high expectations. I think they're going to be in that 2-3 slot, competing with South Florida for the number 2 spot. Of course, Cincinnati could be in the mix. They're all behind Connecticut. But the expectations are high despite the departures that you mentioned. And the reason is because they have Coach Abe. Katie Aberson-Henderson begins her 4th season as the head coach and has turned this program into a winning program. Has won 20 games or more in all 3 seasons. That's the first ever in Division I era in UCF women's basketball. Fresh off an American Conference Championship game appearance, 2nd place finish, and a trip to the NCAA Tournament in 2011. There are many questions on this roster, but Coach Abe so far has had all the answers in her first 3 seasons. I recently had a chance to catch up with Coach Abe. She begins her 4th season exclusively here on the Black and Gold Banneret to talk about this year and her thoughts on this team and what are going to be the keys to be successful and reach their goals. Here's now my exclusive chat with Coach Abe on the Black and Gold Banneret.
All right, Coach Abe, another season's here upon us, Coach. What's it like as you get closer to opening night and opening day tip-off here when you play against Pittsburgh on November the 6th? What goes through you as you kind of learn this team? A lot of new faces, kind of meshing in with some of the veterans coming back. Take me through that process.
Well, I think at the point we're at now, I think every college coach in the country, they just want to get through that first game. The first game, no matter how seasoned of a coach you are, how many years you've been in a place, if it's, a Hall of Fame coach, it's always the first game. It's very nerve-wracking because you just, you kind of know what you have, but, foul trouble and, how the team's going to mesh together, you don't have any scouting reports from this year on the first game because you only have what's from last year, so you know the players that are on the team that's coming in, but you haven't seen them on film, and so there's a lot of unknowns for this first game. So I think that's why a lot of coaches are, let's just get the first game down and then we'll be good. So I think no matter how seasoned of a coach you are, it's just very nerve-wracking.
Is that the thing about the early season games? You actually learn more about your team than maybe you would in practice, because it's one thing to practice and to perform in practice, but once the ball is tipped in real live action against other opponents, that's when you really learn of what you have and what each individual has.
Yeah, and obviously there's the opposing head coach, and the opposing head coach is going to be like a chess game, and so you don't know for sure what they're going to do if they've changed their system for the year. And obviously you have, 5, 6, 7, 8 returning or really seasoned players on the other side, whereas in practice every day we have scout guys and we have our team. And so it's really different to play against, a real live team. That's why it's really good to have scrimmages.
Of course, you're led by KK Wright, who's got a lot of attention, the preseason American Conference Player of the Year. She's a tremendous player. What have you seen from her this year that she's worked on that she might even be better and make another jump compared to last year when she made her great jump?
Yeah, well, first of all, I just want to compliment her and, that this is the first time in American history that somebody besides a UConn player has been picked preseason player of the year. So that's a tremendous honor for KK. And she's so that means 6 people voted for the young lady from UConn and 6 people voted for KK. So that's such a huge compliment. So I'm very proud of her. KK's going to always have some tricks in her basket, right? But, I think she'll shoot some more threes this year, but she's definitely going to do what she normally does. And she's got a great pull-up jumper, and she's dangerous in transition and, making free throws. And, she's just a gamer. So I think, will she take some threes and make some threes? And that's what people aren't ready for her to do. But I honestly think everybody else around her is going to make KK even better.
You've talked about in the past about how, Z Saunders and even KK has brought it up, how she helped her in her game. And you've had a history with guards, even going back to your assistant, Tawny Valerio, when she played for you. What is it about your system? It seems like your guards seem to flourish and it passes it on to the next person.
Yeah, well, it's not always my guards. I mean, when I was at Albany, our best player was a post player. So it just depends on, what type of young lady we have on our team and their mentality. KK just really had the cutthroat, tough mentality, and she's just, the way we play really makes her special because we press and she gets a lot of steals and layups and loose balls and also I want to go in transition and we push in transition, so it really helps KK. And the style of play we play kind of really helps any kind of guard that is fast and athletic and that could go and wants to get up and press. So I think, that's super important. But I think adding Diamond Battle to this is what you're asking me to. Like, she came here because she loved KK Wright and loved the way KK played. And so now, having somebody like KK and her play together is going to be a lot of fun to watch.
And certainly Diamond can learn from KK, and certainly her game could take a next level. Is that it seems like that's been the pattern, at least since you've been here at UCF. Is that one of those things where talks about the leadership that you have from your players, that they pass it on to the next player?
Absolutely. And we try to train leadership from day one in terms of freshmen and sophomores. And obviously Diamond was a captain, is voted a captain this year. We have a senior captain, a junior captain, and Moss Nikaba, and then Diamond. So KK, Diamond, and Moss. And, I think a lot of people are going to see a lot from Brittany Smith and Moss this year, too. So they've grown tremendously. And we've always been an inside-out team, but we just haven't had great inside. But now we have tremendous inside players in terms of scoring. Brittany Smith is going to look like a different player this year to everybody because she can really score on the block, and Mossany can score from pretty much anywhere on the floor.
Let's talk more about up front there, because that's always a big part of your defense and getting rebounds and posting up. How do you feel about your front court going in?
You mean all of our guards?
For front court, all the front court players.
Yeah, so, well, we have a new player, one of our transfers, Cortasia Saunders, that she's, one of our first scrimmages, she just really flourished. We have a really good shooter from Florida, that Northwest Florida, that is going to really open everybody else up, and especially our post players. So to be able to see those two play in this first scrimmage has been a lot of fun, and they can get up and press too. So that's going to, kind of take a little pressure off of KK up there, that they can get up on the top of the press, and Diamond can get up on the top of the press, and KK doesn't have to be up there every single possession. So we got a good 5 rotation up in the guard spot that's going to be really helpful in the front court.
When you have so many new faces, is it the challenge is learning the defensive schemes you have, or is it the offensive scheme when you've had the young players? Which one is it that maybe they grasp quicker, and which one's the one that maybe it takes them a little while?
I think it takes them a little bit longer to grasp the defense, because we're not just learning a half-court defense. We're learning a full-court defense and a half-court defense. And it takes a tremendous amount of work to play the way we do in terms of pressing. So they got to be in incredible shape. They got to have the mentality and the, within their gut that they want to get up and press, and they want to create havoc, and they want to, run around and be okay with being a little tired and be in great shape. So I think that's been our, main focus since summertime, is getting them in shape, getting them ready, getting them in shape, getting them in better shape than they've ever been in their lives, and obviously keeping them healthy throughout that too. So I think it's really hard to learn all the defensive concepts and offense. Obviously, everybody wants to play offense. So it's really the half-court offense that we need to work on. I mean, transition offense we're great at, and the defense and pressing is something we're always going to be great at. But half-court, if people, get back and slow us down, now we got to run a set, and it's kind of hard to, slow us down. So we got to have them have a little bit of poise, wait for good shots, wait for open shots, run the sets, and then obviously get some rebounds.
We're speaking with Coach Abe here on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. It's previewing the UCF women's basketball season. You play another tough, challenging schedule, non-conference where you're traveling. You're obviously open at home against Pittsburgh, but from that point on, you're going to Belmont. You're going to Florida Gulf Coast, who's been a successful program in the ASUN. They shoot the three a lot. You're going to Stephen F. Austin. You're playing at a great tournament in Virginia. We're going to play UCLA and James Madison. Just talk about your philosophy when it comes to making the schedule.
Yeah, I mean, this is just really the American League. We're really all trying to get our strength of schedule up, and I think that's something we're all as head coaches trying to do to keep the American Conference as a good, really Power 6 strong conference. And so we really try to schedule up. It's really hard to schedule. A lot of people don't want to play us, because we are a good team now, and then the style of play that UCF plays. So we've been fortunate to get some of these teams. And obviously when you schedule a lot of teams that are good teams like a Florida Gulf Coast and Stephen F. Austin and Belmont, they're going to want you to come to their place first. So unfortunately we got to go there first. But I think the month of December we're home a lot.
Is that one of the things that's changed since you first got here? When you first got here, this was a program that had won 8 games, was in the bottom of the conference, and now you've put it up to an NCAA tournament program, and all of a sudden teams are a little more gun shy to play. All of a sudden, after maybe when you first got here, you maybe received some more phone calls.
Yeah, absolutely, and it was easier to schedule that first year because we didn't have a record. And after we won 20 games our first year, then it was really hard to schedule. And a lot of college coaches out there obviously have a lot of respect for my coaching staff and myself and how we coach, and that we're, halfway decent coaches. So they don't really want to take a chance on a loss. So they may not play us because maybe we had played them in the past before. So We got to find, some coaches that are willing, to just take a chance and play good RPI teams. And that's basically what's happening, I think, all around the country. Florida goes Gulf Coast, they're always a good team, and they want to play good RPI teams too. And I know Stephen F. Austin does and Belmont. So, and that's why we're going to the Virginia tournament, so we can get better RPI games.
Do you have to tell your players almost, or you kind of be aware, these are 18 to 22-year-olds, and, they've accomplished, especially, the success that you've had here. Now, all of a sudden, there's almost a target at UCF. Every time you're playing, you're going to be circled as a lot of teams' opponents, especially in the conference. Is that something you have to remind the players that really don't get satisfied or at all or anything like that? Because you could get really taken down if you're not ready to play every night.
Well, I think it's more the newcomers. The newcomers are the ones that don't understand yet. They're not going to understand why when we play, somebody that we played from last year, that why they're so intense and so want to beat us so bad, because they were never a part of that experience where, I'm not going to have to tell KK that or Diamond that or Moss or Brittany Smith or even Siani, this is why we got to play super hard, because last year in the conference or last year we played this team and they're going to want payback. And so I think for our top 5 returners, they know that. It's just the newcomers, getting them focused and ready to go, that, you're not going to understand why everybody's like going at us so hard and, getting so fired up to play against us. You're just going to have to play through it and understand that we're telling you that this is going to be a tough game because we beat that team last year, or, obviously in our conference, every team's tough.
Everybody always asks you about UConn every time they ask you about the conference. I want to ask you about the rest of the league. You got South Florida with Coach Fernandez. Cincinnati really had a good year last year. You had a classic game with them at home where KK stole the ball and you won by 1 and you beat them in the semifinals in the conference tournament, among other teams. Just tell me about the rest of the league here, because I would imagine the rest of the league's going to have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder with UConn leaving, and they want to make a statement that, hey, the American's going to be just fine moving forward.
Absolutely, and we talked about that as coaches in our coaches meetings. I think that we want to, keep our conference, the same, and they have the same, strength of schedule and great reputation that we have. And obviously USF is going to be tremendous because they got, their players back that were injured from last year, and they have a big chip on their shoulder because they a lot of their young ones got an opportunity to play a lot, so they're going to be super seasoned and super ready this year with healthy bodies. And obviously, Cincinnati is going to be really good again. And I think every team in our conference is dangerous. And the reason I say that is because there's a lot of, we all know each other very well in terms of the player. But I really think the coaches in our conference are excellent. They're always going to prepare their teams and be ready to go. And I think we have a lot of seasoned coaches in our league, where some other leagues have, kind of fresh, new, young coaches. But our coaches have been, like Lisa Stockton at Tulane, she's a phenomenal coach. It's not like this is her first go-round, and Jose's is not his first go-round, and, Cincinnati coach is not hers. We're all very seasoned coaches, and I think, any night anybody can win.
Yeah, no, there's no question about that. And, you're going to be on television a lot, and your games against South Florida is televised a lot. So it's not just UConn that's getting exposure. How much has that meant to your program to get the exposure? They mentioned the success on the court, but you're also getting exposure as a result of that by being on national television even more. Yeah,
I think it's great. I think it's great for just women's basketball in general. I just remember back in the days when I played, we were never on TV, and I had no role models. And I think it's good for young women. I think that's why women, in especially basketball, have got a lot better, because they can see role models on television, and obviously watching it online and watching it through our websites as these young players that now have role models and they want to be like. It's really helping women's basketball just in general, and just a talent level in women's basketball is just getting higher and higher every year.
What was the next step for women's basketball? If you could pinpoint to something you would like to change or add to the game on the court that they can make the game better, or in general, what would you do if I put you in charge of it?
Wow, that's a broad question. I would take away the stigma of the Power 5 stigma thing. Yeah. It's just, I think there's so many good schools out there, and I think that if some of these young women would go to some of these other schools, they'd see that there's not that big of a difference. I mean, Power 5 means football. It doesn't really mean women's basketball. And I think that stigma really doesn't help young women, because that's why there's a lot of transfers now too, because they may pick the schools for the wrong reasons instead of the right fit for, their style of play, academically, their playing time, all that good stuff. So, I mean, I think that stigma, if that somehow could be taken away, would be fantastic. Just for all of us, it would be just like men's basketball, where they only have 13 scholarships. Now the 14th and 15th player, they're all moving around to different schools, and that's why you see it's a little bit more. I mean, you could see some of these teams that aren't supposedly Power 5 are, in the top 64 and making the NCAA tournament now in men's basketball, whereas women's basketball is kind of still the same.
Well, and we're seeing more players, talented players now that aren't necessarily on the big-time programs. They're getting drafted from other programs. To your point, it's more balanced now.
Yeah.
I'm sure that it was
basketball.
Right, and it's probably more balanced than it was when you first started coaching or even playing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that scholarship thing really leveled the playing field out for a lot of, I don't know all the good men's teams out there, the ones that aren't Power 5 football, but I know there's plenty of them that I've seen on TV, and because those are the ones I'm always cheering for, the underdogs out there, But I just think there's so many good basketball programs and so many good, places these young people could go to school, and they always, tend to go to, the Power 5 schools, and then, they're sitting on the bench. I mean, they could go play somewhere and really enjoy their journey, because not everybody's going to play professional basketball, not even in men's basketball, that they're going to play professionally, for that many years. So I think it's more about the experience and enjoying their journey and, being able to have the chance to play. And there's some really good programs out there that some of these kids aren't even looking at, because, they don't even know the difference.
Couple things before we let you go. Let's talk about your staff. Obviously, the success you've had. I know you've given credit to your staff. Talk about the staff, what it means to you, especially what they do behind the scenes and help build the success that you've had.
Well, I think just, being able to keep them every year. Now, this is our 4th year, and I've had everybody stay. Obviously, I've begged them to stay, and obviously people are, wanting to recruit them and try to take them from our program. And Danny's really been supportive of me and, doing everything he can to keep our coaches here. I mean, my coaches really enjoy UCF and the Knight family, and obviously all of them played for me, but two, Isukin didn't. But they've been together with me for a long time. I really try to allow them to be great at what they're great at and give them a lot of what's the word I'm looking for?
You got a lot of stability there for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a micromanager at all. I mean, if somebody's good at something, I let them do it, and I let them coach, and I let them do a lot of things, and we have great communication, and we get along really well, and it's, it's just a family. It's a great family atmosphere, and we've been able to keep, a lot of people here at UCF. I don't think a lot of people want to leave UCF. I mean, it's such a great place to be. So I'm very blessed to keep my staff, because it just keeps strength in terms of the players and, consistency with them and, not having to teach everything all the time. So I've been very, very blessed to keep my coaches.
And it's a staff that you could probably win a pickup game or two there. Led by Nikisha Sales. Do the players understand how great Nikisha Sales was as a player? Please tell me. I hope the answer is yes, please, because I don't want to feel old, because she was phenomenal watching her play. Are they aware when they see her what a great player she was and how fortunate they get to learn from somebody like her?
I don't know if they've seen her, but they see her every day in practice do the same thing. So, because sometimes she has to get in practice with them. And obviously Tani was a phenomenal point guard, and, East is a great forward and plays super duper hard. And so, I was no chump either, but they never let me play. So whatever. But, it's been to be able to have my coaching staff to be able to be athletic enough and still be young like that and still get out there and, to play and compete, and especially if they have to help the scout guys in terms of organization and their playing. I mean, obviously they know Keisha's a great player just because they have to play against her every single day.
Last question now, as you get going to the season started and things like that, what are some of the keys to your team to have the internal goals you have? What's going to be some of the keys to have that success?
I think togetherness and being, having energy, effort, and being selfless all the time. I mean, that's just been something we're known for, that, the whole bench is into the game and everybody understands who's playing and why they're playing. I mean, I think that's going to be key. And the second key is just staying healthy. I mean, I think that's everybody's key in the country, is just trying to monitor their bodies and make sure they stay super healthy throughout the season. We got to get, some of our players healthy so they can play in December. Well, at least just one of them. So, just keeping everybody healthy, I think, is huge. And then I think what's the biggest thing that a lot of people don't understand is that we just need to take one day, one game at a time. We're not trying to play conference right now. All we're doing is thinking about, our next scrimmage and getting them rest and taking care of their academics, because that's important to them. And I don't really want to overwhelm them. So we just try to take one day at a time, because I can't go back to yesterday, and tomorrow's not even here yet. So let's just be concerned about today and getting better today.
It's about getting better today, and we'll get to see your team up close Wednesday, November 6th. Pittsburgh comes to town. In addition, Financial Arena tip-off 11 a.m. For more details, check out UCFKnights.com. Coach, always a pleasure to talk to you, and excited to see your team. And thanks for doing this under the busy schedule, and we'll see you out there during the season.
All right, not a problem. Thank you so much.
And Coach Abe, thanks to joining us here on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast, and thanks to Megan Herbert for setting that up. And look, guys, I know there's questions. I know you're both concerned and all that, but I give her the benefit of the doubt. She's done an amazing job. When you think about it, in the first 3 seasons here, to have 3 consecutive 20-win seasons. That's never happened in this program in the Division I era. And she's done it with players that people didn't think she had much to work with. I mean, these are her players too. So her and her staff, as we talked about in the interview, to me, get the benefit of the doubt, and they'll figure things out, because they have in the first 3 seasons. And I think that's why the expectations are as high as ever, especially when you have a player on your roster that was voted the American Conference Co-Player of the Year, which was, who would have thunk it?
Yeah. Well, when you have a player like KK, who was, of course, named Co-Player of the Year along with Crystal Dangerfield of UConn, who's really good. KK also named first team all-conference. Yeah, I mean, it's no surprise, really. I mean, it would have been, imagine if for UCF, say, you had one more year of BJ Taylor or Aubrey Dawkins on the men's side. Like, what would that have looked like? That's kind of the same situation here for UCF. KK's one of 3 seniors on the roster. Siani Martin, who's been with the Knights for a few years, is another redshirt senior out of Philadelphia. We'll see a lot of her this year. And Grace Stant, a transfer from Villanova from Red Bank, New Jersey. She comes in as a grad transfer, a 6-foot-tall forward. We'll probably see quite a bit of her this year. Those are your 3 seniors on the roster for Katie Abrahamson Henderson, Coach Abe, and the Knights. By the way, she returns all 3 of her assistant coaches also, Isoka Nizamare, Tani Valerio, and Nikisha Sales. The great Nikisha Sales, former UConn all-time leading scorer, is back once again. The other returning players for UCF, Masani Kaba, the junior from Dorchester, Massachusetts, a 6'3" forward. She's back this year. Brittany Smith, another 6'3" forward who showed some signs last year in the post, is also back for her sophomore year. She's from Boone High School. And another local product, Diamond Battles out of Winter Haven, comes back for her sophomore year. Everybody else is new. There are 4 freshmen on the roster. Maybe the most exciting one, I thought, was Brianna Frazier out of Jersey City, a freshman who was a real scoring threat playing up in North Jersey, and some more shooting help as well with Becca Ripley, a redshirt sophomore who transferred over from Miami. Some of the other transfers that came over. Georgia Gale, a 5'9" guard from Sheffield, England, interestingly enough. She went to Northwest Florida State College. She comes to UCF. Cortasia Sanders out of Bartow, Florida, transfers to UCF from Chipola College. Janaea Walker, 6'1" forward from Trinity Valley Community College out of Bolingbrook, Illinois. She's back. She also joins the fray here for UCF as well. So a lot of new faces around, but but plenty of experience around the table too. Murph, when you take a look at the women's side here, I guess, what is it with obviously KK has a big part of it, but why do you think it is that they're giving a lot of credit here to UCF women's basketball, where maybe they weren't to the men's side with all of these new faces? Maybe some of these new faces have something to do with it, don't you think?
Certainly. I'm not sure again about the strength of the conference either. I do think it's also a nod of respect to UCF, and the fact that you can have, certainly in basketball, you can have one player dominate a game and carry you, we've seen that in major college basketball for a long time. So that's sort of the KK influence. I will say I'm looking forward to seeing how her and Diamond Battles play in the backcourt. Diamond's going to be playing quite a lot this year back there with KK in her sophomore year, and Diamond and KK have a big sister, little sister type of relationship. When KK got to UCF, she actually made Diamond promise her, when she was still a high school student at Winter Haven, she made Diamond promise her that she would also commit to UCF when the time came, and she followed through on that. And so now they're going to play together in that backcourt, basically most minutes, and that's going to be interesting. That's going to be an interesting thing to watch, knowing their relationship off the court, how well that sort of translates on the court.
Also makes me wonder if maybe there's going to be a little bit more of KK playing at the 2, where Diamond could be more of is going to be more of the 1 out there in the regular lineup. Eric, out of those new faces that we see, who intrigues you the most as possibly like as a consistent contributor heading into this season?
That's a good question. I think I'm going to defer to Coach Abe, what she said. I think you mentioned it. I think, Murph, you were there at Media Day when she talked about this young lady and the impact that she will have on this team as far as some of the new faces. I don't know if you want to say new faces, because some of these were there last year, maybe didn't play much. Keep that in mind to some extent as well. But somebody like, for example, Brittany Smith, who was is a sophomore, I think could make an impact, big time impact this year. There's been very glowing about her as far as that's concerned. If you're asking me about the freshmen, I think that's a question they're still trying to figure out over there, as far as who kind of breaks this roster, because as you know, Jeff, Coach Abe would like to play a lot of bodies so she could press and keep him fresh. So this, does somebody like a Kiera Brown, a freshman, for example, from Palm Beach Gardens, contribute here, and really provide in the backcourt? And I always defer to the backcourt because, Coach Abe kind of downplayed it in the interview there, but they've gotten great guard play since she's arrived here. Yep. And I'm talking like raising the level of the game. Like when KK Wright was here as a freshman, I mean, she was playing well, but nobody foresaw what this was coming. And she's developed tremendous. And, I've talked to KK in the past about it. She gives credit to Z Saunders, who was the senior who transferred from Albany, come over to UCF, played a year, was fantastic 2 years ago. And she kind of took KK under their wings. And I think to Murph's point, I think KK is going to take Diamond on her wing and pass that on as far as the leader in the guard position. So, I think that's going to be interesting, though. Like you mentioned, who are some of the new faces that could certainly make an impact for sure? I'll give you a name, though, that I'm excited to see. I think it's a little under the radar now, and that's Masani Kaba, who I thought was fantastic in her freshman year, Jeff. When you remember, they had a ton of injuries, especially in the front court. She had to play more, and I thought she was solid. I love her post-up game. Then last year it was a deeper team, so she didn't, play as, had the full minutes that she had 2 years ago. I think she's blossomed. I think she reminds me, it could be like the Collin Smith of this team, where I think a 1-2 punch inside, outside. You could have Kaba inside as a big force inside. I think she's going to have a really good year, and I'm looking forward to seeing what she could do there with KK and Diamond there. And maybe those are your 3 top scorers on this team.
So let's look at the conference overall. Obviously, UConn, first place vote with all the first place votes. Now, apparently, the coaches, as they vote, you can't vote for yourself. So, Gino Auriemma, you want to guess who he voted for with his first place vote? I can guess because I know what I'm going to guess because we're on this podcast. Yeah, so let me guess. It is your UCF Knights. Yeah, UCF got 1 first place vote. The Knights are according to the preseason poll, tied for 3rd with Cincinnati. UConn 1, USF 2, and they picked USF 2 because they had a lot of injuries last year. They would have been number two anyway. I'm pretty sure of it, or at least it would have been a tough catch for UCF to get them. But they're pick number 2. UCF and Cincy tied for 3, followed by Houston, Temple, Tulane, Memphis, Wichita, Tulsa, ECU, SMU in that order. Obviously, UConn in their final year in the conference, they're expected to roll on through, but it does feel like it used to be pretty much a given that South Florida would be number 2. Is it as much of a given this year, do you think, Eric Lopez?
Not at all, and I disagree with you. I think UCF is the second best team. I don't think USF would have been second last year. I think that's no disrespect. I'm a huge Jose Fernandez fan. I think he's brilliant as a head coach, but this is a contrast of styles, and UCF I thought had more depth than they had, and injuries are part of the game, and that's the way it goes. And USF's got some questions there. I mean, they don't have Loxa there anymore. They don't have their firepower. Now they have some talent. Don't get me wrong, and I think they're going to be bouncing back. And I think it is important for the league. I mean, we can talk UConn all we want. UConn's departing at the end of the year. And as I talked to Coach Abe in the interview there, I think this league's got a chip on the shoulder, needs to get a chip on the shoulder. Who's going to step up now for this league moving forward is going to be important. And I think for this league to be successful, I think USF, UCF for sure need to be successful at the top of the league. And I think a team like Cincinnati, who could be a team to watch out for here, you saw them up close. They gave UCF all they can handle in a match last year at Orlando where KK Wright had to steal the ball to get a victory. But they got talented players coming back with Antoinette Miller and Thomas there. So they've got, Ilmar Thomas. So they've got some talent there. And I think it's important for this league to show that they will be okay after UConn. I think that's the biggest question with this league. And for that to happen, I think you need USF, UCF at the top because they have great coaches with Fernandez and his offensive style. And of course, Coach Abe at UCF. And maybe a team like Cincinnati who's got good talent to be among that mix. Hopefully, if you're the league, UConn is going to be UConn this year. You're hoping to be at least a 3-bid league this year to show that moving forward, you can still be a multiple-bid league, even life after UConn.
Yeah. By the way, UConn has never lost a game in the American Athletic Conference since the conference was founded in 2013. Regular season, in conference, or in the tournament. They've gone undefeated. The last time UConn lost a conference game was in 2012-2013. They went 14-2 in the old Big East, and it was against they lost in the Big East Women's Tournament to Notre Dame. They were number 3. Notre Dame was number 2. They lost 61-59. Their last in-conference regular season loss was March 4th of 2013 at Notre Dame in a triple overtime game. 96-87 was the final score. Of course, Notre Dame no longer in the Big East and certainly not in the American, in the ACC now. But a remarkable run for Gino. And the question is going to be, can anyone get them before they leave? I don't know. Let me ask you, this will be my last question for you guys on this. Do you guys think that they can be, if anyone can get them, who can get them in conference? Brian, I'll start with you.
UCF, only because you have a star. You have a legitimate star that can take over a game.
How about you, Eric?
I agree with Murph, but for a different reason. I agree with him. It's UCF, but for a different reason. It's because of style of play. South Florida likes to go up-tempo. That's right into UConn's hands. That's why I don't think South Florida they're never competitive with UConn. Not that many are. But whereas UCF, they will slow the game down, and they can defend. And if they can protect the basketball, they'll make UConn play ugly and make them feel uncomfortable. And Murph, you were there with me at, what was it, 2 seasons ago?
2 seasons ago,
where they played that game where they held UConn to 55 points. It was a 55-37 game. That's the kind of style that you need to play to stay in it with UConn and put some pressure on them in the fourth quarter. Make them make some plays. I think UCF has the style to do that. You're right about KK. The problem is UConn, what they tend to do, they're going to focus on KK and put a lot of pressure on her, so somebody else has to step up. Does UCF have that player on the roster? They haven't in the first 3 seasons. Will they have that this year? Is it a Diamond Battles? Is it somebody else? Who knows? But I do think UCF is a type of team that could be the team that could give UConn fits. They annoy Gino and UConn. We saw that by his infamous post-game presser at the championship game last year. He was agitated by them. So clearly the UCF knows how to agitate them. So I would bet on UCF. And I think that's what it would take. It would be somebody like that, unless it's a team also that UConn sleepwalk. If you remember a couple years ago, they almost lost to Tulane in Tulane because Tulane, that was their Super Bowl. So if they go play Cincinnati, there's a team like Cincinnati, that's their Super Bowl. There's UCF, there's UConn sleepwalk through some of those games. That's another possibility, is a team kind of the field, right? If we did the whole take UConn, UCF or USF or the field, some might take the field because some might think that UConn may not respect the other teams, where UCF and USF might get their attention. But I will say it's UCF because of the style of play that they have and present kind of some problems for UConn.
One of the things about UConn that I was thinking about was, obviously Megan Walker returns for them, but this, for the first time in a while, it feels like this is the first time that UConn's center of gravity is in the backcourt with Dangerfield and Kristen Williams. Who both of them were all-conference selections, as was Megan Walker. But it feels like there's – I'm not saying that their front court is bad, obviously. Their front court's amazing, probably the best front court in the country. But are they as good as they were with, Katie Lou Samuelson and certainly Nafisa Collier, who was just amazing for them last year? And if the center of gravity is in the backcourt, well, that matches up with what UCF wants to do. And again, I think you're right, Eric. Both of you guys are right. It comes down to KK, and can they frustrate UConn enough to kind of throw them off their game and confuse them a little bit? But I don't know. That's beating UConn's a tall order for anybody. Nonetheless. Well, UCF does have will get an opportunity to do that. Their season starts Wednesday at 11 a.m. Against Pitt at home. It's school. It's school day actually at UCF. You can have a lot of groups from some local schools coming to watch the game. The Knights go on the road to play Belmont, Old A Sun foe, at Fort Myers to play Florida Gulf Coast. Then they go to Nacogdoches to play Stephen F. Austin. They got Delaware and Stetson at home late in November. Stetson's the day before Thanksgiving. They go to Virginia to play UCLA and James Madison before they come home to play Quinnipiac. And then we have a holiday tournament here with St. Mary's and Wright State. Central Michigan the day before New Year's Eve to close out the non-conference slate. Conference opponents at home include ECU. UConn comes here on Thursday, January 16th. That game will be televised on ESPN3. ESPN2 will carry the game at Cincinnati and at USF on January 12th and 9th, respectively. The Knights are home for Memphis, also at home for Memphis, SMU, Cincinnati, USF on February 19th, and Temple. And then March 2nd is Senior Day. Wichita State comes to town in the American Athletic Conference Championship March 6th through the 9th in the Mohegan Sun Arena once again. Go ahead, Eric. I'm sorry.
One thing to highlight in that schedule, you mentioned, you kind of passed through. UCF January 12th at Cincinnati. It's a Sunday. You mentioned it's ESPN2 at Cincinnati. Following that, Thursday, January 16th, they host UConn, 6 o'clock on the 16th of January. Then on Sunday, they go to Tampa to play the Bulls on ESPN2. UCF's the only team in the conference. If you look at the conference preseason poll, UConn was 1, USF, UCF, and Cincinnati. Those are your top 4 teams, and I agree with that. I think those are the top 4, and then there's a gap. UCF is the only team that has to play all 3 of them, Cincinnati, UConn, and USF, back to back to back.
And they do it twice.
And they do it twice. They got to do it again later in the year. February 15th on Saturday, they host Cincinnati. Then host South Florida on Wednesday before going to UConn. Did I miss? Did we miss the memo? Did UCF actually win the league? Like, should UConn have that schedule? Like, that portion there, like back to back to back? That is rough. And that is a concern to me as far as UCF's concerned from a scheduling standpoint, because that's tough. I mean, South Florida doesn't have to do that back to back to back, and UConn does it, which doesn't make any sense to me, but whatever. It is what it is. You play them out, and they'll be ready to play. But more than likely, those are going to be pivotal stages of the season, and you may have to say that UCF, to have a shot at second place, may have to go 4-2 in those 6-game stretch.
Yeah, you're probably right about that. Certainly, at least hold serve at 3-3, but it'll be a tough thing to figure out. So, all right. Let's put a bow on this special basketball preview edition. Brian Murphy, what are some of the things that we're going to be seeing from you this basketball season?
Well, you'll be seeing me at a lot of games, Jeffrey.
That's good.
I understand the premise. You know what? I was thinking, because you went through the women's schedule there. That game on Wednesday, 11 a.m., I'll be right there talking to Heupel at that same time. So after we're done with our 4 to 5 minutes of talking to Josh Heupel, maybe I'll just pop on over to the arena and check that out. That'd be fun.
And 4 to 5 minutes of hearing, we're going to go 1-0 this week.
Absolutely. It's a bliss in 4 minutes every week. We love it. And I'm looking forward to the quick turnaround this next weekend coming up. I'm making sure that I'm returning from Tulsa early Saturday morning so I can get from the airport to the arena. UCF men's basketball starting against Prairie View A&M. So that'll be fun.
Yeah. How about you, Eric Lopez? What are you looking forward to, and what can we look forward to from you this basketball season?
I will be there. Murph just kind of inspired me. He kind of really won me over. I don't think that was his design, but his, Wednesday with Heupel and women's hoops. What's not to like? I might have to join you on that.
Murph knows where the stories are. I'll be there.
All we need is a little coffee, and we're good to go, right? A little coffee there.
A little brunch.
Yeah, I'm down. So I might be down for that. So I'm going to be looking forward to going to a lot of the basketball games and kind of seeing the story develops. And let me ask you both this: what are the games? Give me a couple of games that you circle. What are the games like? Wow, I can't wait for that. Like you mentioned, obviously, like the UConn game in women's basketball is going to get circled because it's going to be the last time, more than likely, that UConn comes to UCF. So that's one I've got circled, obvious reasons. I think on the men's side, I think certainly Memphis comes here. I think that's one that everybody's going to have circled. But give me another one. That you guys kind of have circled. They're like, wow, this is a game I'm looking forward to seeing that team play, or this is a game that could be a key game that could, could be a big factor in this season one way or the other, something like that.
On the women's side, I think that the Stetson game the day before Thanksgiving is going to be a very good barometer game because Lynn Bria, former coach here at UCF, has created a little bit of a mini monster up in Stetson. They're competitive in the ASUN every year. They come here for the first time since I think since Lynn has joined Stetson, and that'll be a 1 p.m. game on Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving. I'm looking forward to see that because it'll be a good early season test for UCF to see. All right, how do they match up with a team? With a team like that in the early going before conference play actually gets underway. So that's one I've got circled. How about you, Murph?
Well, I think for UCF men's basketball, I'm looking forward to seeing them at Oklahoma. Just a different environment, and I want to go up against a Big 12 program on the road. That's gonna be a big measuring stick for where this young team is at that point. Just before that leads into basically conference season play. I also want to bring out that the front half of UCF men's basketball conference slate, it's totally front loaded, the schedule for UCF, because coming out of that Oklahoma game on December 21st, they open up at home against Temple, but then it's at Houston, at SMU, Cincinnati, at Tulane, you might win that one. Then South Florida at Wichita State, Memphis at South Florida again. That is how
heck, man. Wait a minute, did we miss the memo? Did we win the league last year? What the heck, man?
That is how they go from January 3rd to February 1st. There is a month. The month of January for men's basketball is going to be either like really entertaining and like interesting, or just like bury your head in the sand, disastrous. It could go either way.
All right. Yeah.
Wow. By the way, and we might. You talk about the non-conference. Here's a little portion of the schedule. You mentioned preview opener. Miami comes here at 9:00 tip Tuesday night. Jim Larinaga and the Hurricanes. Of course, his son Jay Larinaga who's an assistant with the Boston Celtics, been coaching Taco Fall, by the way, and
That's
working on a shot.
That's a late tip at home, isn't
Not
it?
prime time. Late prime time on CBS.
Yeah. One of us is not looking forward to that late tip.
Yeah, Mr. I Love Noon kickoffs over here.
And then they go to Illinois State. Remember that memorable NIT game with BJ hit the free throw to advance there to the quarterfinals when they win at Illinois State. That's a good program. And then I'll skip ahead here. A trip that Murph I know was circling there. Anaheim playing over there in the tournament up in Anaheim, Murph, with a good field there. Where they're going to open up with Penn from the Ivy League, but there could be some potential teams they might be playing there that could be pretty interesting.
Well, certainly Arizona, Long Beach State. You've got some good. Now I have spoken about this on a regular podcast that my goal was to be out at that tournament and then either return in time for the Black Friday USF game or leave after the Black Friday USF game and then go out there to go cover basketball. However, as time has gone on, both are very unfeasible just due to plane flights and scheduling. So I will not be in Anaheim around Thanksgiving, unfortunately, and that really, really bothers me since I had been pretty much marking that tournament on my calendar for the past year. But
that's
I will not be able to do
that's the Wooden Legacy Tournament, and just to give you some idea of who's in this tournament, you got Arizona, Charleston, Long Beach, Penn, Pepperdine, Providence, UCF, and Wake. Wake Forest is in there, so it's a pretty good field out there. Some teams from out west mixing up with some teams from the east, and that game will be out at the pond at the Anaheim Pond.
It used to be the pond. It's not the pond anymore.
It's still the pond. Stop.
Always the pond.
Still the pond.
I just want to say, by the way, unfortunately, we couldn't get the Black and Gold Banneret jet for Murph. But if there's a booster out there, a fan that has a lot of connections,
a jet.
Hook up. Yeah, if you want private jet, hook up Murph. The same people that hooked up. Anybody like the same people that maybe hooked up Brock Lesnar to get out of Saudi Arabia, and while the rest of the roster got stuck there for like 24 hours. Somebody like that. It can hook up Murph to go from Black Friday with basketball and football back and forth. Please follow us at Black and Gold Banneret and reach out to us so you can help a young man like Mr. Murphy.
You can help a young boy's dreams come true.
Help brother out. So with that, we will. That'll do it for our basketball preview. Again, like Eric said, follow us at blackandgoldbanneret.com, UCF Banneret on UCF_Banneret on Twitter. And Facebook.com/.
But let's show some props, by the way. Jeremy Brenner, who's going to be covering women's basketball. He's got some great features coming up on the Banneret, Jeffrey, that he was around media day. He was talking to a lot of UCF players, and it really wasn't basketball talk.
And he's going to be doing a lot of women's basketball coverage again. So make sure you follow Jeremy Brenner at Jeremy Brenner on Twitter. And follow Luke Saris as well, who's going to be helping us out with some men's basketball coverage as well at Luke Saris SBN. You can follow us also, I forgot to mention it, Facebook.com/Black and Gold Banneret, and on Twitter at UCF_Banneret. So don't forget to follow us each individually, Jeff_Sharon, Eric Lopez Elo, Spokes_Murphy. So for Eric and Brian, I'm Jeff. Thanks for listening to our basketball preview show, and it should be an interesting basketball season as well. A lot of intrigue heading into it, and it starts with the women on Wednesday. We'll be there for it. All the best. Enjoy basketball season. We'll be back with our regular show on Thursday.